Doesn't that amount to forcibly displace, or wouldn't that amount to forcibly displacing those people from Gaza?
I don't think so. I think if they had the opportunity, they'd love it. If they had an alternative to Gaza. They have no alternative right now. I mean, they're there because they have no alternative. What do they have? It is a big pile of rubble right now. I mean, have you seen the pictures of it? Have you been there? It's terrible to live. Who can live like that? And very dangerous. They're shooting all over the place. I don't know why the World Cup is there. Bombing all over the place on both sides.
Oh yeah, it's going to be in LA soon.
No, I would think if they had an option of moving to either in a large group or various smaller groups and take care of the close to 2 million people, I would think that they would be thrilled to do it. They have no, when you say about the Gaza Strip, they don't have an option.
To be clear, you're saying they'd be thrilled.
It's very dangerous.
They'd be thrilled to leave Gaza.
Oh, I think they'd love to leave Gaza if they had an option. Right now, they don't have an option. What are they going to do? They have to go back to Gaza. But what is Gaza? There's practically not a building standing. And they're very dangerous. Those buildings are shifting and they're falling down all over the place. And there's gunfire all over.
While the war was ongoing rather than now when there's a ceasefire?
Which is what you're talking about.
When it was more dangerous when there were strikes overhead than now.
Well, the strikes could start tomorrow. There's not a lot left to strike.
Maybe we don't have to worry too much about Republicans constructing an alternative reality where all of their policies work. If Trump's going to do this kind of thing, where he's like, yeah, I negotiated a ceasefire, but like it's bullshit. Like it's not going to hold up at all.
It's a demolition site. The whole place is demolished. It's unsafe. It's unsanitary. It's not a place where people want to live.
Mr. President.
Nobody's gone. They have no alternative but to go back. If we gave them an alternative of living in a beautiful open place with some, nice quarters there, nice housing of sorts, and we have the money in the Middle East to build that.
Do you support Israelis actually moving back and creating building?
Not necessarily, no. I just support cleaning it up and doing something with it, but it's failed for many decades. And somebody will be sitting here in 10 years or 20 years from now, and they'll be going through the same stuff, the wars. And they've had civilizations on Gaza, many civilizations on Gaza, and they're buried in the sand.
Secretary
It doesn't seem to work.
Secretary.
Elon Musk, thank you, sir. On Elon Musk, how often are you talking to him? And have there been ideas that he's brought to you that you've said, oh no, wait a minute, this is going a little too far?
Well, many ideas, but look, he's done a great job. Look at all the fraud that he's found in this USAID. It's a disaster what the people, radical left lunatics, they have things that nobody would have even believed. The whole thing with $100 million spent on you-know-what, with money.
Condoms to Gaza, or to Hamas. That's the thing they're currently on. $100 million of condoms to Hamas.
Money going to all sorts of groups that shouldn't deserve to get any money with the money. I'd like to see what the kickbacks are about, and I read about it, and I see every night on the news and every morning when I read the papers. Who would spend money for that? I would say this, the people that got all that money, are they kicking it back to the people that gave it from government? No, that's, to me, very, very corrupt. The real question is how much of a kickback has there been? And one of the things I want to investigate rapidly, because I've never seen anything to this extent, the train that's being built between Los Angeles and San Francisco project, I think
Why does it keep cutting out like that? That's really weird. This is an official video feed.
I've ever seen, and I've seen some of the worst. Billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars.
Hundreds of billions, trillions.
In fact, I read where you could take every single person that was going to go on the train and get the finest limousine service in the world and take them back and forth with limousines, and you'd have hundreds of billions of dollars left over.
He's heard that. It's not true, of course, but he has heard it. I will say, however, it is particularly malicious saying this when Elon Musk is one of the people responsible for delaying the California high-speed rail project, but also at the same time, Trump's kind of right on this one. California dropped the ball on that massively. It's genuinely disgusting. It's like a money pit, It's so bad. I would rather never have high-speed rail than just let our governments use the promise of high-speed rail to spend hundreds of billions of dollars on public-private partnerships, just dumping it into consultancy groups and so on and so forth.
It is the worst thing, and we're going to start an investigation in that because it's not possible.
Construction costs in the U.S. in general are insanely overblown. Yeah, because it's an opportunity for more corporations to stick their fingers in the pie. Literally, that's why. That's the only reason why. The reason everything is expensive in the United States when it comes to construction is because, like, if every step of the way there's 100 corporations ready to like milk as much money from the government as is possible.
I built for a living, and I built on time, on budget. It's impossible that something could cost that much. And now it's not even going to San Francisco, and it's not going to Los Angeles. They made it much shorter. So now it's at little places way away from San Francisco and way away from Los Angeles. No, we're going to start a big investigation on that because I've never seen anything like it. Nobody has ever seen anything like it. The worst overruns that there have ever been in the history of our country. And it wasn't even necessary. I would have said, you don't buy it. You take an airplane. It costs you $2. It costs you nothing. You take an airplane. But this got started, and if you have to, you drive. You can drive.
Are there other agencies?
They have hundreds of billions of dollars of cost overrun.
Yeah, look at the way they talk about it on the goddamn website, highspeedrail.ca.gov. 13 billion invested, and hey, don't worry, 97% went to California firms and workers. How many of those workers were employed by the state? Oh, very few of them. The vast majority of them were privately employed. Okay, so what you mean is the money went to the corporations, and the workers for those corporations got their wages, which is what happens. So what you mean is 13 billion invested, 97% went to California firms. That's what you mean when you say that. God almighty. Such a waste. Wait, they're trying to justify it too? Yeah, well, yeah, of course they are. They're like, look at all the jobs we've created. Yeah, we haven't actually built anything. In California, permitting requirements mean that the only thing you can consider in a bid is if it's as cheap as it can possibly be. Yeah, but who made these permitting requirements? Like, at every step of the way, all of the rules regulating these public-private partnerships were litigated by corporations. Like, there was no citizens movement to litigate all the specifics of the rules for public-private partnerships in California. The corporations took that one over. Wonder how much it costs to build high-speed rail in Europe. Building anything in America is like many times more expensive than in other countries, even well-developed countries.
And it's not even the same project. It's much shorter. It's way outside of San Francisco and way outside of Los Angeles. So we're going to be looking into
Mr.
this.
President, those engineers that Elon Musk has helping him are as young as 19 years
That's
old.
good. They're very smart, though, Peter. They're like you. They're very smart people.
Thank you. Has he have
The
you met
Rizzler.
any of these guys?
No, I haven't seen them. They work actually out of the White House. They're smart people. Unlike what they do in the control towers, where we need smart people. We should use some of them in the control towers where we were putting people that were actually intellectually deficient. That was one of the qualifications, is you could be intellectually deficient. No, we need smart people. Some are young and some are not young. Some are not young at all. But they found great things. Look at the list of things. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow.
We're
I'll read
re-entering
off
the
a
weave.
list of 15 or 20 things that they found inside of the USAID. It has to be corrupt. Nobody could approve that. They could only approve that if they were getting kickbacks.
And it
And
sounds
you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars.
and it sounds like you're going to wind down USAID.
It sounds like it. I mean, I think so. Yeah. I
So
would think.
when that happens, which part of the government?
Well, I
is
could see
responsible
Marco
for paying?
Rubio being in charge, State Department, because they're giving money to. I mean, some of the money is well spent, I guess, but much of it is really fraudulent.
And on the education department, why nominate Linda McMahon to be the education department secretary if you're going to get rid of the education department?
Because I told Linda, I hope you do a great job and put yourself out of a job. I want her to put herself out of a job. Education department. So we're ranked number 40 out of 40 schools, right? We're ranked number 1 in cost per pupil. So we spend more per pupil than any other country in the world.
That's going
and
great.
We're ranked at the bottom of the list. We're ranked very badly. And what I want to do is let the states run schools. I believe strongly in school choice. But in addition to that,
High-speed rail in the UK has major cost overruns. I will say the UK might be the only other country I can think of that is as bureaucratically bloated and inept at public works as the United States. That's the only other country that I can think of. They're really bad about it over there. I'm remembering the what am I saying? A train line where they had it planned out. It was being built, but boomers in the housing nearby didn't like the idea of seeing a train go by, so they complained, and everything was delayed and much more money was spent building like a cover for the train so they couldn't see it. That's the HS2? Yeah. You're thinking of the HS2? Yeah. They should have conscripted those boomers to go work on the train, laying down tracks.
I want the states to run schools, and I want Linda to put herself out of a job.
So do you think that's something? Do you think that's something you can do with an executive at Congress?
Yeah, I would like to be able
These
to.
cuts.
Look, if I could give the schools back to Iowa and Idaho and Indiana and all these places that run properly, there's many of them. I think so. If you look at the list, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, believe it or not, China's doing very well on that list, a list of well-educated, where they run their school system well. You have a lot of countries, not surprising names. I think that if you moved our schools into some of these states that are really well-run states, they would be as good as Denmark and Norway and Sweden and some of the other states. And then you'd have the...
Are we talking about noise protection? Aren't trains loud as fuck? Nah, trains aren't even loud anymore. Not really. I mean, like, a car running on a highway is pretty loud. A train's, like, a bit louder than that. Now that we have continuous welded rail, you don't have the kukung of trains. They're really not that loud. Depends on how close you live. They weren't that close to the train.
The laggards, and you know who they are, I don't have to go to it, but you'd have the laggards, the same laggards that are laggards with everything else, including crime. But even them, you'll break it into systems. As an example, if you went to New York, you go to Westchester County, you go to Dutchess County, you go to Suffolk and Long Island and Nassau and Long Island, you have maybe 6 or 7 locations, and you have New York City, which would include the 5 boroughs. And I think even that would run much better than it does right now. Same thing with Los Angeles or California. You'd have Riverside, you'd break it up into 6 or 7, but most of them would be states, and you'd have one, like in Iowa, you give it to the state of Iowa, you give it to the state of Indiana, these are really well-run states. They don't have debt, they don't have problems, they don't have any crimes, relatively speaking, to speak of. And you would have education that would be the equivalent of Norway and Denmark and various other places that are at the top.
It is crazy that he would make comparisons like this and then do the opposite of what countries like Denmark and Norway do to make their education better. Like, you're citing them as positive examples, but your prescription is the opposite. You know? I mean, this would be like, yeah, they have such a high minimum wage over in Denmark, so to bring that wealth and prosperity to our people, we're going to be lowering the minimum wage. It doesn't make any sense.
Top of the list. So we're at the bottom of the list, and we're the most expensive. We're at the top of the list when it comes to cost per pupil. We spend more money per pupil than any other nation in the world, and yet we're rated number 40. The last ratings came out, you saw them. So in
case you're wondering why that is, by the way, it's, you guessed it, corporations skimming off the top. Seriously, take a look at, in America, the cost of academic administration versus the cost of paying for teachers year by year. I'll just find it so you don't have to look it up. Growth in the students and school personnel 1950 to 2009. Oh, this isn't even like the... Wait, hold on. AIE.org. Hello, latest work from 2023, Why Socialism Fails. Thank you. Well, as we can see, capitalism is doing swimmingly here. You can't make me look at it. I suppose that's true.
They talk about 40 countries. We're rated number 40. And I say that if we did this, we would go 20, 30 notches up. We could do great. And we would have some of the best districts in the world.
But are you looking to do that with an executive order, sir, or do you need to work with Congress?
Well, there are some people that say I could. I think I'd work with Congress. I think we'd have to work with the teachers union, because the teachers union is the only one that's opposed to it. Nobody else would want to hold them back. Look, we have to tell the teachers union, we're rated last in the world in education of the top 40. We're rated last. We were 38. Now we're 40. We went to 39. We went to 40. We're 37. But we're at 40 now. The thing just came out. That's under Biden, remember that?
Secretary Rubio announced a deal this week that would allow potentially American citizens who are criminals to be put in a different country. Is that something you're looking to do?
No, I didn't know that he announced that yet, but if he did, it's fine, yeah. We have hard criminals, horrible people. You see him pushing people into subways. The train is coming last week. Guy walking around and just sees somebody waiting for the train. Train's coming 40 miles an hour.
Yeah, here we go. I think this is a bit more indicative. From 2000 and onward, the percentage change of teachers and students enrolled has basically not changed. Plus 8% from 2000 to 2019. Principals and assistant principals up 37%. Administrative staff nearly doubled. It's all money being skimmed off the top. All the money that goes from the federal state governments down to these schools, a ton of it gets siphoned off by a bloat of parasites and middlemen who, same with hospitals. Exactly. It's the same with higher education, lower education hospitals. It's all administrative bloat. That's what costs. It's everything at the top. None of it actually in any way, shape, or form affects or reaches. That's the reason why whenever you actually saw money being invested in your school growing up, it was in sports. Remember? I bet a lot of you do. Your classrooms were decrepit, the AC didn't work, you're using chalkboards rather than the nice new whiteboards. Oh, here's $40 million for a new, athletic infrastructure. Why? Speculative investment. You get people good on football early, they turn to college football. College football is like a money printing machine. They all work together. Now, how much money do they make from you getting good at math? Basically none.
And he gets pushed into the subway. And that happens all the time. These are sick people. If we could get them out of our country, we have other countries that would take them. It's no different than a prison system, except it would be a
Wrong colleges also put shit tons of money in the business school. Yeah, because the business school produces the people who then go on to fuel the administrative bloat. So yeah, it's kind of like a self, it perpetuates itself.
less expensive, and it would be a great deterrent. Send them to other countries. If we could go a step further, in other words, we're talking about getting the criminals out of our country that come in through other countries illegally, right? The illegal migrants, as I call them. Well, we have people that are just as bad as them in our country. If we could get them out, I'd be very happy.
El Salvador said that he would wanted you to pay a fee for that. Would you pay that?
Well, it's a very small fee compared to what we pay to private prisons.
But under what authority?
And a very, very
$5.
small fee. I don't know. We'll have to find that out legally. I'm just saying, if we had the legal right to do it, I would do it in a heartbeat. I don't know if we do or not. We're looking at that right now. But we could make deals.
That's really dangerous rhetoric. Yeah, it's the Trump gulags.
We'd get these animals out of our country. And if you take the shooters, the people that hit old ladies in the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, that walk down the street, the people that you see it, the people that...
He's played a Yakuza game recently. That's where his mind is at right now. If your knowledge of criminality came entirely from quirky Japanese RPGs, then I might also support sending a lot of people to El Salvador, Me taking it all seriously, I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, these people are animals. Because I just got, double teamed by two guys wielding, respectively, a traffic cone and a bicycle. That might set me back a little bit, sociologically.
Take out a gun and shoot you for no reason at all. If we could get these animals out of our country and put them in a different country...
Remember when Trump released 1,500 violent criminals back onto the streets, in his first day in office? That was cool. I remember that.
Of somebody that made a relatively small fee to maintain these people, because you know what? These are criminals. You call them hardened criminals. They've been in jail 40 times. There's one 42 times, and every time the person gets out, it's a he. Every time he gets out, he commits another crime within 24 hours, and it's a he.
Okay. I'm not saying he's right on this one, but I do maintain, woke, misandry, I do maintain that democratic mismanagement of local government leads to Republicans having the front foot on talking points like this, because legitimately, yeah, That happens pretty much all the time. If you live in LA, Seattle, New York, or whatever, you hear about some like guy who got into an altercation or there was a stabbing, and the first thing you read is like, oh, here's an obviously insane person. He's been arrested 40 times in the past 2 years. And it's like, oh, like, why isn't he in jail? And usually it's because the jails are overfull or there's some bureaucratic bullshit, you know. But it is an issue.
Heinous crime. It's a rough crime. We don't want these people in our country either. We don't want them in our country. If we had the option to get them out and let them be based in some other country at a fraction of the cost, and frankly, they could keep them because these people are never going to be any good. That person that has been arrested 42 times or 22 times or 17 times and is all in for manslaughter and
lowering the bar,
and only gets out because of a very weak judicial system that only goes after people like Trump. They don't go after the criminals. They don't go after people like this. And they laugh at
That's
our law.
so true.
If that took place, you would have a lot less crime automatically.
So is there exploring whether they
A lot of space to accommodate a lot of people.
Cut.
yes.
They have these little cuts. I don't know why.
We have it. It's already up. We have it for nothing. But we can do less expensive and even more secure. We've had other countries come to us saying, we would love to do that. We would love to take your criminals and we'll maintain that. We'll be their jail. And I'm only talking for the most severe cases. Like, I watched that guy on tape pushing the man into the subway last week. That man that did that is a real bad guy. Many, many arrests. And do you think you're going to convince him someday?
How do I heal from heartbreak? The person who broke your heart, an undocumented immigrant. Because if they are, and I'm not saying this would be good, but no. Do people not realize platform screen doors would fix this subway issue? I think there's some like logistical issues with wind management or something like air management if you have those. But I don't think you should need those to not have people who have been arrested 30 times in the past year to keep them from like pushing you onto the tracks, you know? It is pretty how low trust society we are, and criminality is on the rise, at least in the thing is it's so asymmetrical, you know? Like the vast majority of people are fine, and then there's a small percentage of people who have fallen through the cracks are causing like 50 crimes a day. Haven't there been studies where it's like, hey, you know, you saw like so and so many crimes or assaults or whatever in the city, but it turns out like 50 of them were from one guy, and then if you remove him, you remove like 12% of the entire city's overall assault statistics for the entire year or something, you know? Literally, like we apologize for claiming New York City had so and so many assaults per year. We forgot to account for John Assault, who accounted for 362 assaults that year or something. It's just very mentally ill people who fall through. This happens in Republican states too. Yeah, but this is a city issue. And most big cities are run by Democrats. But yeah, it happens everywhere. I'm not saying Republicans handle this better. I'm saying that, like, look, we know real American cities are run by Democrats. Chicago, New York, LA, Seattle, whatever. We know what the real American cities are. They're run by Democrats. And when people think about America and Americana, they think about these cities. So mismanagement at a local level within those cities, like, it causes issues. Man decapitated own father. Okay, fascinating. I don't know why this was linked to me. Argonel, I love you, but this ain't that kind of chat. We ain't essay posting. We ball here. Take your essay posting ass back to, I don't know, Substack. You get what I'm talking about, right? It's sad that no large city has been able to figure out a good way of dealing with criminals, even with such high budgets. Well, nobody wants to put the money where it would actually be useful. Housing first, anti-homelessness policies would deal with so much criminality and so much of the like waste and mess in cities, okay? No one wants homeless people around. It's just that like the default solution every American goes to is like, what if we put them in a wood chipper or something, which as it turns out is more expensive and also slightly inhumane, I think. And then like, there are some bureaucratic issues with the way we keep turning out and turning over people with serial criminal charges, you know? Like, what's his name? Why am I blanking? The guy who got strangled to death by Daniel Penny, Jordan Neely, Jordan Peele. Remind me, I've got a bad memory. My brain is a fog. I'm dying. My telomeres are eroding. My neurons are dying. Jordan Neely. Yeah, Jordan Neely had been arrested how many times? Again, I'm not saying he deserved to be murdered. Sorry, that wasn't the consensus of the jury. Not murdered. Died inexplicably. But he had been arrested like 30 times before. It's related to what he's talking about. Dude got out in bail in a red state. Really? Interesting. Yeah, it's just stuff like this. Because this is it's indicative, you know? Neely had an extensive criminal record, including 42 arrests on charges including petty larceny, jumping subway turnstiles, theft, and 3 unprovoked assaults on women in the subway between 2019 and 2021. You know what I mean? Like, man should have been in jail. I'm not even talking about petty larceny or fare evasion, okay, whatever. Like, oh, you've gotten arrested for, I don't know, farting near a cop. I don't care. But 3 unprovoked assaults on women in the subway? I mean, come on. That's not minor, you know? That's problematic. And the more stuff like this happens, the more like antisocial everyone gets. You've probably noticed it happening in your life too, right? You want to believe that you can be social to people around you, but in reality, you're out there in the city and you're like, I don't want to engage with these people. Because any one of these motherfuckers could be insane. And it's a tragedy of the commons thing, because the more you think that, the more they think the same thing, everyone gets more fearful of everyone else, and it reinforces all the patterns that makes people legitimately afraid of each other, you know? But what do you do in states to reduce recidivism rates? Well, it depends on the circumstances. The fact that all American prisons are torture pits probably doesn't help very much, but in his case, in Neely's case, man probably should have been in prison, like, indefinitely. Like, he was pretty mentally cooked. They probably should have had him in there in like a treatment plan, and like a real treatment plan, not like a the one that flew over the cuckoo's nest. You're in a concrete pit and every once in a while a nurse comes in and beats you and then gives you some pills to swallow or whatever, but like an actual treatment center, which wouldn't cost any more than a regular prison cell. It doesn't cost that much more to treat the people well when you already are paying for their housing and accommodations and food and blah blah. But we don't believe in that. We have rehab in America. Yeah, but that's not rehab. Rehab isn't prison. I'm talking about prison, you know, like a prison treatment center. I had a methadone clinic guy threaten to beat me up for following him down the one street to my home. I feel like it's getting worse too. This is the most like me making shit up statement that this is like an all-timer, I think. I feel like homeless people are getting crazier and meaner. Totally inventing this. When I was a kid in LA, I feel like pretty consistently, a lot of the homeless people that I saw were pretty down on their luck. Well, they all are, obviously. But, like, I had conversations with a lot of them. Like, a lot of them. Again, lived in LA, you know? And I walked a lot, talked to homeless folks, whatever. A lot of them down on their luck, but you can talk to them. Feel like I've noticed that shit ain't happening anymore. I don't know if it's a Seattle-LA difference or if it's, like, a real shift. I don't know if it's a fentanyl thing. I don't know if it's, like, an accumulated trauma thing. Like, the longer this crisis goes on, the more it builds up and up and up. But now I feel like every homeless person I interact with is clearly not there. Obviously, that's not the case for all homeless people. I'm speaking about, like, my general experience, the stuff that I remember, but I feel like it's gotten a lot more pronounced. Being homeless can do that to you? Yeah, I have nothing but sympathy from my end. I'm not condemning them for that at all. Put me out on the street for one day, and I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to be like a feral animal out there, okay? Digging through dumpsters and growling like a raccoon or something, you know? I'm not in any way, shape, or form condemning them for that. I'm just saying I feel like, you know, as a consequence both of material deprivation and maybe like society getting colder, like, I don't know. Really don't think this is good to say. Well, you know, the PC police have to present me a warrant before they can come into my stream, okay? It's just the experience I've had. It's not like a condemnation. It's just more concentrated social failure, you know, like systemic society in general has become super antisocial. That's true. That's 100% true. Yeah. What's your take on giving money to homeless people when they beg, like morally? You should do it if you've got cash on you, which no one does anymore. But yeah, try to help homeless people out when I can, of course. Doesn't really fix anything, but not giving them money would also not fix anything. That wouldn't solve the problem either, actually. What homeless people need is less money in their pocket. No, Cult of Eden, that's what I mean. I'm not saying like homeless people in like a moral character sense have gotten worse. I mean like the conditions have produced worse outcomes. Vash, I was homeless when I was 18. I'm facing potential homelessness again at 26. You're right. People out there are getting more desperate and they're acting crazier because of it. Yeah, I think it might be like a post-COVID thing to a large extent. Yeah, there's probably a lot of factors like building up, you know, a lot of stuff that kind of like rolls into the outcome there. It's really sad. 5G towers, exactly. 100%. In my area, panhandlers get like $150 a day. Some people stopped looking for work just to panhandle. Based. Probably a harder job than anything you do. Certainly harder than what I do. You know, I get to benefit from air conditioning. It's a sign of social failure, but you know, if you're on your grind, whatever. My grind is sports betting. Oh, well, that's the hardest job on earth. Now I get you, Cold Feeding. All right, well, anyway. Sorry, this stuff just comes up a lot. I genuinely believe, and I really do mean this, I genuinely believe that urban decay is why we are where we are right now. Like, all the bourgeois propaganda in the world would not have worked in the way that it did if major American cities were clean and people in them had high social trust. Genuinely. I genuinely think, like, I think that on its own would have been enough to, but yeah, there's no such thing as urban optimism anymore. Nobody believes in, like, what if we built a glittering metropolis that that provided us, like, wealth and opportunity. No one believes in that anymore. Everyone sees cities as these, like, massive decaying bodies that occasionally have, like, stalagmites of glass and steel arise from them, like fungal growth on a corpse, you know? It's people, nobody thinks of it as a big, like, experiment or like an aspirational project anymore. How do we fix urban decay? That's a very complicated question. Yeah, drugs is definitely a big part of it. Mixed zoning. Mixed zoning is actually a huge part of it, for sure. I'm a psychiatrist in Poland, and even here we have way too little permanent end-of-life care for the mentally ill to their well-being. I can't imagine what it is like you describe it in the U.S. Yeah, we have, like, nothing here, basically, for the most part.
Looking at that to see if we can do it.
What other countries have offered to take American citizens?
Say it?
What other countries have offered to take these American citizens?
Numerous, many. And Marco brought it up today. I'm glad he did. Because a lot of people are thinking it. When I watch some of the crimes being committed in New York City and Chicago, look at Chicago, the volume of crime that they have and the viciousness of the crime. These people are horrible people. And if somebody thinks they're going to be wonderful citizens someday, they're wrong. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. They're bad. These are hard, tough criminals. In many cases, they're crazy. They're absolutely crazy. But they're very dangerous. If I can get them
just
out
like
of the
me.
country and be in some other country, private prison, or to, put them in one of our prisons that costs even more money, I think it would be great. I'd love to get them the hell out of our country. Thank you very much, everybody.
President Trump, who's going to win the Super Bowl?
Thank you.
I don't want to say, but there's a certain quarterback that seems to be a pretty good winner.
And just last one, because you mentioned.
Yeah, right. He wants to ship them to El Salvador? Well, he'll ship lots of people to El Salvador. Him and Netanyahu are going to talk soon, by the way. Does anyone, I'm not going to lie, do you want to see that? Like, we already know what the outcome is. Like, we already know everything about it. It's a genocide. They're both pro-genocide. They're going to talk about how they're both pro-genocide. I don't really know what the